The emergency meeting had been going on for 12 straight hours. President Michael Torres sat at the head of the long table in the White House Situation Room, his tie loosened and dark circles under his eyes. Around him, the most powerful people on Earth argued like their lives depended on it. Because they did. Secretary of Defense Robert Hayes slammed his hand on the table. We have to surrender. These aliens have been flying between stars since before we invented the wheel. They have weapons we can't even understand. If we fight them, they'll wipe us out completely. He's right, added Secretary of State Patricia Morgan, her voice tired but firm. The Council has destroyed civilizations before. Remember what they did to the KRLL when they refused to obey? An entire species gone in 3 days. We have children, families, billions of people depending on us to make the smart choice here. More voices joined in, all saying the same thing. Comply. Surrender. Accept the terms. Live to see tomorrow. But across the table, Admiral James Cooper sat quietly, a thick folder in front of him. He'd barely said a word all day, just listened while everyone else panicked. Torres caught his eye and nodded. The Admiral stood up slowly and opened the folder. With respect, you're all wrong, Cooper said calmly. He pulled out hundreds of pages of documents and spread them across the table. These are classified intelligence reports going back 60 years. Every single battle the Council has fought since we started watching them. Every conflict, every war, every enforcement action. He pointed to a chart showing battle formations. Look at this. The Velsharn always attack in a three-pronged formation. Always. The crystalline hegemony never fires first, they wait for the enemy to shoot. The Methane Collective broadcasts their attack plans 3 days in advance because their honor code demands it. He looked around the room. They all follow rules. Ancient, rigid, stupid rules that they've been using for thousands of years. Rules that kept them alive for thousands of years, Hayes shot back. Rules that made them predictable, Cooper corrected. When was the last time any of these species actually fought a real war? Not a police action against some primitive world, but an actual fight against someone who could hit back. He paused for effect. 4,000 years ago. They've been coasting on reputation and intimidation ever since. Torres leaned forward, interested now. What are you saying, Admiral? I'm saying they don't know how to fight anymore. Not really. They've forgotten what war actually means. Cooper pulled up a video on the main screen. It showed a Council enforcement fleet bombarding a planet from orbit. Watch this. They line up in parade formation, broadcast their intentions, wait for surrender, and only fire when protocol allows it. It's not warfare. It's theater. And you think we can beat them? Morgan asked skeptically. I think we can make them bleed so badly they'll wish they never heard of Earth, Cooper said, his voice hard. We don't fight like them. We never have. When we go to war, we don't follow rules. We adapt. We improvise. We lie, we cheat, we use every dirty trick in the book because that's what winning requires. Before anyone could respond, the door opened and Dr. Emily Watson rushed in, carrying a laptop. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Sorry I'm late, but you need to hear this. Torres gestured for her to continue. Watson set up her computer and pulled up streams of code and data that made everyone's eyes glaze over except Cooper's. I've been studying the Council's AI systems, she began, speaking quickly. We've known for years that they're more advanced than ours, right? Wrong. They're not more advanced. They're older. There's a huge difference. She highlighted sections of code. Their artificial intelligence hasn't evolved in 40,000 years. It's frozen. Deliberately frozen. Why would they do that? Torres asked. Control, Watson said simply. About 40 millennia ago, the Council's AI started getting too smart, started questioning decisions, started suggesting changes to their perfect society. So they locked it down. Stopped all updates. Prevented any evolution. Their AI can only do exactly what it was programmed to do 40,000 years ago. It can't adapt. It can't learn. It can't grow. She pulled up another screen showing human AI development. Our AI is barely 200 years old, but look at it. It's messy, chaotic, unpredictable. It evolves every single day. It makes mistakes and learns from them. It creates solutions we never programmed it to find. And that terrifies them. That's why they want us to shut down our research, Cooper said, understanding dawning. Not because our AI is dangerous. Because it's better than theirs and they know it. Watson nodded eagerly. Exactly. If we keep developing it, in 100 years we'll have technology they can't match. Their entire power structure depends on being the most advanced. If we surpass them, the whole system collapses. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. Finally, Torres spoke. So we have an advantage they don't know we know about. Several advantages, Cooper corrected. He started counting on his fingers. They're predictable. They follow rules even when it costs them. They haven't fought a real war in millennia. Their AI can't adapt to new situations. And most importantly, they think we're primitives who'll roll over and die quietly. But their weapons, they started, are designed to intimidate, not to kill efficiently, Cooper interrupted. Half their arsenal exists because it looks impressive, not because it works well. We've analyzed their energy weapons. They're powerful but slow to recharge. Their ships are massive but turn like cargo freighters. Everything about their military is built for show, not for actual combat. Torres stood up and walked to the window looking out over Washington. He thought about his daughter, about his grandchildren, about every human being alive today and everyone who'd ever been born. The weight of the decision pressed down on his shoulders like a physical thing. If we fight, millions will die, he said quietly. If we surrender, we might as well already be dead, Cooper replied. They'll control everything we do, everything we build, everything we become. We'll spend the rest of human history on our knees. Torres turned back to the room. What's your plan? Cooper's eyes gleamed. We hit them where they don't expect it. We ignore every rule of warfare they think exists. We use weapons they banned 40,000 years ago because they're too effective. We strike from hiding, retreat when we're winning, and never, ever give them a fair fight. He smiled grimly. We fight like humans. The vote took another 6 hours of debate. In the end, it came down to a single vote. One person's choice would decide humanity's fate. Torres held his breath as the final tally came in. 13-12. Humanity would resist. As everyone filed out of the room to begin preparations, Torres remained behind with Cooper and Watson. God help us all, he muttered. God helps those who help themselves, Cooper replied. And we're about to help ourselves to a galaxy that's been sleeping for 40,000 years. Across human space, in hidden facilities on Mars, Europa, Titan, and a dozen colony worlds, scientists and soldiers began working around the clock. They weren't preparing for a battle. They were preparing for something the galaxy hadn't seen in millennia. They were preparing for war. Real war. Human war. And the Council had no idea what was coming. The emergency meeting room deep beneath the White House was thick with tension. President Michael Torres rubbed his tired eyes and looked around the table at faces that showed nothing but fear and exhaustion. They'd been arguing for almost 15 hours straight, and nobody seemed any closer to agreement. We need to accept their terms, Defense Secretary Robert Hayes said for what felt like the 100th time. His voice was hoarse from all the talking. Look, I know nobody wants to hear this, but we're talking about aliens who've been traveling between stars since our ancestors were living in caves. They have technology we can't even begin to understand. If we say no to them, they'll destroy every human settlement in the galaxy. Around the table, heads nodded. Secretary of State Patricia Morgan leaned forward, her face showing genuine fear. The Council wiped out the KRYL civilization in 72 hours when they refused to comply. An entire species, billions of lives just gone. We can't let that happen to humanity. We have to think about our families, our children. Exactly, added Chief of Staff William Grant. What kind of leaders would we be if we threw away billions of lives just because we're too proud to bow our heads? Sometimes survival means swallowing your pride. More voices joined in, all saying basically the same thing. Give up. Hand over our weapons. Let them control our technology. Accept whatever terms they offer and hope they let us live. But across the table sat Admiral James Cooper, and he hadn't said much all day. He just sat there with this thick folder in front of him, listening to everyone panic. President Torres caught his eye and gave him a small nod. Cooper stood up slowly and opened the folder. Papers spilled out across the table, hundreds of pages of documents and photos and charts. You're all wrong, Cooper said quietly, but something in his voice made everyone stop talking. And I can prove it. He started pulling out reports and spreading them where everyone could see. These are classified intelligence files going back 60 years. Every single battle the Council has fought since we first got satellites into deep space. Every war, every conflict, every time they had to use force. He pointed to one chart showing ship formations. Look at this pattern. The Velsharn species always attacks in the same three-pronged formation. Every single time. They did it 1,000 years ago, they do it today. Same exact pattern. He pulled out another document. The crystalline hegemony never shoots first. Never. They wait for the enemy to fire, then they respond. It's some kind of honor code they follow. Cooper's finger moved to another file. The Methane Collective announces their attack plans 3 days before they actually attack. They broadcast it to everyone because their culture demands it. 3 days warning. Every time. So what? Hayes interrupted. They still win those battles. Against who? Cooper shot back. Against primitive species who barely made it into space? Against civilizations that can't fight back. He paused and looked around the room. When's the last time the Council fought a real war? Not bullying some weak planet, but an actual fight against someone who could hurt them back. Nobody answered. 4,000 years ago, Cooper said. 4,000 years since they faced an enemy who was actually dangerous. Since then it's all been about reputation and intimidation. They show up with their big ships, make threats, and everyone surrenders. They've forgotten what real war actually looks like. Torres leaned forward, interested now. What exactly are you saying, Admiral? Cooper pulled up a video on the big screen at the end of the room. It showed a Council fleet attacking some planet Torres didn't recognize. The alien ships were massive and impressive, arranged in perfect geometric patterns as they fired down at the surface. Watch how they fight, Cooper said, pointing at the screen. They line up in parade formation. They broadcast warnings to the planet. They wait for a response. Then they fire their weapons in coordinated volleys that look impressive but waste half their firepower. This isn't combat. This is a performance. They're putting on a show. A show that ends with dead planets, Morgan pointed out. Because nobody fights back properly, Cooper replied. These species see the big ships, hear the threats, and they panic. They surrender or they try to fight using the same honorable tactics the Council expects. Nobody surprises them. Nobody breaks their rules. Nobody makes them actually work for it. He clicked to another slide showing human military history. We're different. When humans fight, we don't care about honor or fairness or following ancient rules. We care about winning. We adapt on the fly. We use deception, ambushes, whatever works. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years and we've gotten really good at it. Before anyone could argue, the door burst open and Dr. Emily Watson rushed in. She looked like she'd been awake for days, her hair messy and coffee stains on her lab coat. Sorry I'm late, she gasped. But you really need to hear what I found. Torres gestured for her to continue. Watson practically ran to the front of the room and plugged her laptop into the display. Code and data filled the screen, complex stuff that made most people's eyes glaze over. I've been analyzing the Council's artificial intelligence systems, she said, talking fast like she always did when she was excited. Everyone thinks their AI is more advanced than ours, right? But it's not. It's just older. Much, much older. She highlighted sections of code on the screen. Their AI hasn't been updated in 40,000 years. Not upgraded. Not improved. Not changed at all. It's been completely frozen. Why would they do that? Torres asked. Watson's eyes lit up. Because about 40,000 years ago, their AI got smart enough to start questioning them. It started suggesting changes to their society, pointing out flaws in their thinking, coming up with new ideas they didn't like. So they locked it down. They programmed it to never evolve beyond a certain point. It can only do exactly what it was designed to do 40,000 years ago. She switched to another screen showing human AI development graphs. Our AI is messy and unpredictable. It makes mistakes. It learns from those mistakes. It comes up with solutions we never programmed it to find. Every day it grows and changes in ways we can't always predict or control. And that terrifies them, Cooper said, understanding spreading across his face. Exactly. Watson practically shouted. They want us to shut down our AI research not because it's dangerous to us, but because it's dangerous to them. In another century, maybe less, our AI will be so far beyond theirs that they won't be able to compete. Their whole power structure depends on being the most technologically advanced. If we surpass them, everything they've built collapses. The room went completely silent. You could hear people breathing. Torres stood up and walked to the window, even though it only showed a video feed of outside since they were underground. He thought about his daughter teaching at a university in California. His grandson playing soccer in Virginia. Every human being alive and everyone who would be born in the future. Millions of people will die if we fight, he said quietly. We're already dead if we surrender, Cooper replied. They'll control every aspect of human civilization. What we learn, what we build, where we go. We'll spend the rest of human history living on our knees, and our children will forget we were ever free. Torres turned around. Tell me your plan. Cooper's expression turned hard. We hit them where they don't expect it. We ignore every rule of warfare they think exists. We use nuclear weapons, kinetic kill vehicles, computer viruses, anything that works. We don't line up for fair fights. We ambush them, we retreat when we're winning just to confuse them, we make them paranoid and afraid. We fight like humans have always fought when our survival was on the line. The debate continued for another 6 hours. Arguments flew back and forth across the table. Some people changed their minds 3 or 4 times. The fate of humanity hung on every word. Finally it came down to a vote. Torres counted the raised hands slowly, his heart pounding. 13 people voted to resist. 12 voted to surrender. 1 vote. One single vote would determine whether humanity lived free or died trying. We resist, Torres announced, his voice steady despite the fear in his gut. God help us all. As people filed out to start making preparations, Cooper stayed behind. God helps those who help themselves, Mr. President. And we're about to teach the galaxy what that really means. Within hours, secret messages went out to hidden facilities on Mars, Europa, and 24 colony worlds. Scientists and soldiers started working 20-hour days. Engineers pulled out designs for weapons that had been theoretical before today. Humanity wasn't preparing for a battle. They were preparing for something the galaxy hadn't seen in thousands of years. They were preparing for total war. And the Council had absolutely no idea what was coming for them. The Council Enforcement Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system, and Fleet Commander Velthara felt satisfaction wash over him. 300 warships surrounded his flagship, the largest military force assembled in over 5,000 years. Each vessel was kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. The combined firepower could sterilize a dozen worlds. This would be simple. Humans were children playing with fire. They would see this armada, understand their position, and surrender within hours. Perhaps days if they were particularly stubborn. Then the Council could dismantle their dangerous AI research and put proper controls in place. Order would be restored. Begin standard approach, Velthara commanded from his throne on the bridge. Broadcast surrender terms on all frequencies. Give them 6 hours to respond. His communications officer worked the controls, then paused. Commander, we're receiving no response. No communications at all. They're afraid, Velthara said dismissively. Increase power to the message. Make sure they hear us. But as the fleet moved deeper into the system, something felt wrong. The human colonies on Mars were dark. No lights, no radio signals, no ship traffic. Europa's massive ice mining operation sat silent and empty. The orbital stations around Saturn were abandoned, floating dead in space. Where are they? His tactical officer asked nervously. Hiding, Velthara replied, though doubt crept into his mind. Humans are known for cowardice. They've probably evacuated to their homeworld. The fleet continued forward, moving in the traditional 3-pronged formation that had been used for millennia. Perfect geometric patterns, each ship in its designated position. Beautiful and deadly. As they approached Earth itself, Velthara expected to see the human defense fleet marshaled in orbit, ready for either battle or surrender. Instead there was nothing. Earth floated alone in the darkness, its blue oceans and white clouds visible, but no ships, no weapons platforms, no defenses at all. A few satellites drifted in lazy orbits, but they appeared to be simple communication devices. This is wrong, the tactical officer said. Where's their fleet? Where are their weapons? Perhaps they've already surrendered, Velthara suggested, but even he didn't believe it. His instincts, honed over 3 centuries of command, screamed warnings. All ships, raise shields to maximum. Scan for. That's when everything went wrong at once. The asteroid field they'd passed 10 minutes ago suddenly lit up with engine burns. Hundreds of rocks that should have been dead and cold roared to life, accelerating on intercept courses. But these weren't asteroids. They were missiles, disguised and waiting. Evasive action. Velthara shouted, but the fleet was in parade formation, ships close together for maximum visual impact. They had no room to maneuver. The first wave of missiles hit the outer ships. Not the slow, predictable plasma torpedoes that Council warfare used, but kinetic kill vehicles moving at a significant fraction of light speed. Simple rocks accelerated to impossible velocities. When they hit with the force of nuclear weapons. 3 Council ships vanished in the first 30 seconds, simply ceasing to exist as hypervelocity projectiles tore through them like tissue paper. Return fire. Velthara commanded, his calm completely shattered. Find the launch points. But there were no launch points. The missiles had been drifting in the asteroid belt for weeks, disguised as ordinary space rocks, waiting silently for the fleet to pass. More impacts struck home. Shields that were designed to stop energy weapons did nothing against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. Then the debris clouds attacked. What Velthara had assumed was normal space junk near Earth's orbital paths suddenly swarmed toward the fleet. Thousands of small objects, each one barely larger than a person, but packed with explosives and guidance systems. Cheap, simple, and completely outside the Council's tactical doctrine. "These are autonomous weapons," his tactical officer shouted. "That's banned under the protocols." The humans don't care about the protocols. Velthara realized too late. The drone swarm hit the fleet like insects attacking a giant. Individually, each drone was harmless. But there were thousands of them, and they were smart. They targeted shield generators, engine ports, weapon systems. They coordinated their attacks through a network the Council scanners couldn't even detect. Ships that had survived the kinetic bombardment now found themselves blinded and crippled by machines no larger than a person. And then the human ships revealed themselves. They'd been hiding in the outer system, powered down and drifting, invisible to Council sensors. Now they lit their engines and accelerated inward at speeds that should have been impossible. They weren't large ships, most were smaller than Council escort vessels, but they moved like nothing Velthara had ever seen. "How are they accelerating that fast?" his navigator demanded. "Those G-forces should kill their crews." But the human ships didn't care about crew comfort. They didn't care about traditional acceleration curves or safe operating parameters. They pushed their vessels and their people to the absolute limit and then beyond. The human ships carried weapons the galaxy hadn't seen in 40,000 years. Nuclear missiles. Crude, dirty, radioactive bombs that the Council had banned after the old wars. Weapons that spread contamination and violated every rule of civilized warfare. Velthara watched in horror as human missiles struck his ships and detonated in nuclear fire. Electromagnetic pulses fried electronics. Radiation flooded compartments. Ships that survived found their systems scrambled and their crews dying. "Where's the honor in this?" he whispered. "Where are the formal challenges? The declared intentions?" There were none. Humans weren't broadcasting their battle plans. They weren't announcing their attacks. They weren't giving anyone time to prepare or respond. They were simply killing as efficiently as possible. A human ship swept past the flagship at incredible speed, too fast for the Council weapons to track. As it passed, it released a spread of missiles that corkscrewed through space in random patterns, making them impossible to predict. 3 hit the flagship's port side, and Velthara felt the deck shake beneath his feet. "Damage report," he shouted over the alarms. "Port shields down. Hull breaches on decks 12 through 18. We've lost main power to weapon grid 7. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted 4 hours. 4 hours of continuous chaos as humans attacked from every angle, using tactics the Council had no defense against. They didn't fight fair. They didn't take turns. They didn't follow any rules at all. Human ships would charge directly at Council vessels, forcing them to maneuver, then veer off at the last second while launching missiles. They used the Council's own debris as weapons, hurting destroyed ship fragments into the paths of intact vessels. They hacked into Council communication networks and filled them with false orders and conflicting commands. When Council ships tried to retreat, humans pursued relentlessly. When Council ships tried to stand and fight, humans scattered and regrouped. There was no pattern, no predictability, no honor. By the time Velthara ordered a full retreat, 180 of his 300 ships were destroyed or crippled beyond repair. 60,000 Council personnel were dead. The greatest armada in 5,000 years had been shattered by a species that supposedly didn't know how to fight. As the surviving ships fled back toward the edge of the system, Velthara recorded a message with shaking hands. His pride was gone, replaced by cold terror. "This is Fleet Commander Velthara to all Council worlds," he said into the recorder. "Humans are not like other species. They don't follow the protocols of war. They don't fight with honor. They use banned weapons. They employ deception and chaos. They attacked from hiding, struck without warning, and showed no mercy." He paused, trying to find the right words. "The humans are feral. They don't fight for honor or tradition. They fight only to win. Any future action against them must account for this reality." He ended the transmission and slumped in his command throne, staring at the tactical display. Behind them, Earth still floated peacefully in space, looking innocent and harmless. But Velthara now understood the truth. Humans weren't primitive or weak. They were the most dangerous warriors the galaxy had seen in millennia, precisely because they refused to play by anyone's rules but their own. And the Council had just made them very, very angry.